This past Monday, the 7th of Adar, was the anniversary of both the birth and the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. According to our tradition, Moses was born and he died on the very same day, 120 years apart. And not only was this past week both Moses' birthday and his yahrzeit, but today is Shabbat Zachor, a Shabbat devoted to memory. And you would think that on the week during which we commemorate both Moses' birth and his death, that we would read a Torah portion suffused with Moses' name. Because what better way is there to remember someone than by invoking that person's name? We do it here at Temple Beth Shalom every single day when we recite the names on our yahrzeit list. But in a strange twist of the liturgical calendar, this morning we read Parshat Tetzaveh, which has the dubious distinction of being the only portion in the Torah from the moment of Moses' birth until the moment of his death in which Moses' name is not mentioned. Not a single time. The Torah portion opens with the words, Ve'ata tetzaveh, and you shall further command the Israelites. And we know that the you here refers to Moses, but Moses' name is never explicitly mentioned. And there are many different explanations given as to why Moses' name is absent from this parsha. The Vilna Gaon suggests that it is precisely because of the fact that in most years we read Parshat Tetzaveh during the week of Moses' yahrzeit, that the Torah doesn't mention his name this week. Not mentioning Moses' name is the Torah's way of conveying the magnitude of the loss of our greatest prophet. But I want to offer a different explanation this morning. I think the fact that Moses' name is not mentioned in this week's Torah portion teaches us a profoundly important lesson. We don't need to invoke someone's name to honor their memory or to know that they continue to be a presence in our lives. Because people are not synonymous with their names. To use a Shakespearean cliche, what's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. The essence of a human being, especially a person as great and as influential as Moses, cannot be reduced to something as simple as a name. We are not our names. Rather, we are defined by the names that we make for ourselves in the world. And the best way to remember someone when they're gone is not by invoking their name, but rather by living through the values that define them. When you fight passionately against injustice and intolerance, that is channeling Moses. When you carry yourself with a deep sense of humility, that is channeling Moses. And most of all, when you speak words of Torah, the very words that Moses brought down from Sinai, that is channeling Moses. Even if his name is not explicitly used, whenever we act as Jews in the world, we are channeling Moses and we are honoring his memory. On Monday night, we will be celebrating Purim and reading the Megillah, and just as Moses' name is not mentioned in this week's Torah portion, God's name is not mentioned, not even a single time in the Megillah. And I think the fact that God seems to be absent from the Megillah is a reflection of how so many people in the world are feeling at this very moment. Last month, over 50,000 people in Turkey and Syria were killed in a terrible earthquake. Where was God? On Monday, as I mentioned, in Israel, Ilan Ganeles, a dual American-Israeli citizen and a recent graduate of Columbia from Connecticut, was killed by terrorists on a trip to Israel. Where was God? And on an extremely personal note, last night my 8-month-old nephew, Shai, my brother's son, spent his 3rd night in the hospital. Shai is suffering from croup, as well as a number of other viral infections that are making it extremely difficult for him to breathe. And he was transferred to a top-tier pediatric facility late yesterday afternoon as doctors continue to try to help him to normalize his breathing. What reasons could God possibly have to cause an innocent 8-month-old baby to suffer? And where is God as that sweet, adorable little kid sits in a hospital bed? I don't believe that God caused my nephew to get sick, but in every picture that my brother has sent me of Shai in his hospital bed, he's been smiling, he's been laughing, he's been happy. And the fact that Shai is able to keep smiling and laughing as he struggles to breathe, that I believe is God. The fact that my brother and sister-in-law are able to find the strength to make it through these incredibly difficult and arduous days, that is God. And the fact that they are receiving so much love and support from their family, from their friends, and from their community as they go through this incredibly difficult ordeal, that is God. In the words of Rabbi Harold Kushner, when a person is dying of cancer, I don't hold God responsible for the pain he feels, but I have seen God give such people the strength to take each day as it comes, to be grateful for a day full of sunshine or a day in which they are relatively free from pain. When people who were never particularly strong before become strong in the face of adversity, when people who tended to think only of themselves become unselfish and heroic in an emergency, I have to ask myself where they got these qualities which they would freely admit that they did not have before. And my answer is God. As Rabbi Kushner might put it, God did not cause Haman to attempt to annihilate the Jews of Persia, but when Vashti stood up for herself to the king, that was God. When Mordecai found the strength to refuse to bow down to Haman, that was God. And when Esther mustered up the courage to reveal her true identity, that was God. As is the case with Moses, just because God's name isn't mentioned doesn't mean that God wasn't there. We don't need to invoke God's name to know that God is with us. God is the strength that allows us to persevere through life's greatest trials and tribulations, the courage that allows us to push through even the most difficult of obstacles. And most of all, God is the power that gives an 8-month-old baby boy the ability to smile and to laugh as he struggles to breathe in his hospital bed. I think my brother and sister-in-law may be watching, so wishing my nephew Shai a refuah shlema